Everybody, Miss Germany here. Wanted to go over with you how to solve an equation with decimals because I know we haven't gotten to one of those yet, and you will face them in some of the quiz. Sorry, every time I touch the screen it goes away and changes. So I wanted to make sure we talked about this. This also not only does have a decimal, it also has distributive property, as we can see from the parentheses. So what I wanted to do is I want to show you how we deal with this. Now, if you're looking at your decision chart, there are decimals, and it tells you to multiply by the largest place value. Now, what that means, and this was something that I had difficulty sometimes wording, but it goes like this. If I have the number 0.25, everybody would agree that is my decimal, correct? Okay. So what happens is, in order to find my multiplier, I am going to look at how many decimal places there are. So I have two numbers that are after the decimal. So, and what that means is I am going to multiply by 100 in order to remove that decimal. Now, the other thing you can think of is if you know your place values, this is the 2 is in the tenths position and the 5 is in the hundredths position. So since hundredths is my largest place value, that's the one that I'm going to work with. So I'm going to multiply by 100. Now, the thing is, when I'm multiplying, the thing you want to be careful about is I do not want to multiply within the parentheses. Okay, this is the thing that's a little bit different, is I don't want to multiply within the parentheses. So when I do this multiplying, I am going to multiply my 0.25 by 100. So I'm going to multiply 0.25 and I'm going to multiply that by the 100. Okay. But I am not going to multiply, and this is where it gets a little weird when we have the distributive property. I'm not going to multiply the d minus 12 because that's inside parentheses and that's going to be multiplied by what I get from a result. Now, just like we did with fractions earlier, okay, whatever I do on the left-hand side of the equal sign, I've got to do it over here on the right-hand side of the equal sign. So I've got a 4 over here that also will have to be multiplied by 100. All right, so I have a 4 over here that will also have to be multiplied by 100. Because what I do on the left-hand side, I've got to do on the right. But I'm not going to touch the parts that are inside of the parentheses. Now, when I multiply 100 times 0.25, the reason I'm doing that, just like I multiplied by the LCM, is because it gets rid of the decimal. So now I have the number 25, and that's going to be what I multiply by the d minus 12. Okay, that's what's going to happen there. And then 4 times 100 is going to be 400. All right, so there's what I've got. So that was step number 1, which was decimals multiplied by the largest place value. Okay. Now, my next question then says, does distributive property need to be used? And yes, in this case, I do need to use distributive property because I have a 25 right next to, in parentheses, d minus 12. So I'm going to multiply 25 times the d, and I'm going to multiply the 25 times the 12. Now, when I do that, obviously, 25 times d is going to give me 25d. Keep the operation because the 25 is positive, so I have minus. 12 times 25 is going to be 300, I think. I'm sorry, I should have had that already worked out. 12 times 25, yep, 300. All right, so we have 300 here, okay? And the distributive property, again, is just for what's inside parentheses, so I'm just going to keep my equals 400. All right, so I just keep my equals 400 there. Okay. So that gets me my distributive property, and I didn't have to worry about negatives per se because the 25 wasn't a negative there. All right, so next thing, are there like terms on the same side of the equal sign? So I'm going to draw my line here so I can see this. And no, I don't have like terms on the same side because here I have a d, a variable term, and a constant, the 300. Over here I only have one term. So not like terms, so I'm going to go down. Are there variables on both sides of the equal sign? Well, I have a d over here, but no d over here, so the answer to that one is going to be no. Are there constants on both sides of the equal sign? Again, constants are numbers without a variable. So the 400 is a constant over here on the right, but so is the 300 over here on the left. So I answer yes, and it tells me to add or subtract to move the constant away from the variable. So there's my variable of d, and the minus 300 is on the same side. So the inverse operation there that I am going to use is I'm going to add 300. And whatever I do on one side of the equal sign, addition property of equality, tells me I have to do the same thing on the other side. All right, so I'm going to add the 300 on both sides. Now, there on the left, the negative 300 and the plus 300 are going to cancel each other out, which means that what I'm going to bring down is that 25D. Okay, and then it's going to equal, and then I have 400 plus 300, which is going to give me 700. Okay, so that's going to give me 700. All right, so there I did my add or subtract to move the constant away from the variable. Now, is there a coefficient with the variable? Remember, coefficient is a number attached to it. So yes, there is. There's 25 is attached to my d by multiplication. So I'm going to divide to solve for the variable. So I'm going to divide both sides, because division property of equality tells me what I do on one side I must do on the other. So I divide by 25. And I'm dividing by 25 because I want to make the d all by itself. So again, 25 divided by 25, those two are going to cancel out, leaving me with just my d. And then I have my equals, and when I do 700 divided by 25, I am going to get an answer of 28. All right, I get an answer of 28. So that is an example of ridding decimals, okay, getting rid of decimals from an equation, as well as dealing with if you have distributive property within. Ignore the parts that are inside the parentheses temporarily until you get rid of the decimal or the fraction, depending on which it is, and then you are able to solve. Hope this helps. Good luck today, guys.